Congressman Petri, thanks very much for taking some time to talk with us on Aero-TV. Let's start right in with a couple of issues, because one of the main things that people are talking about here are user fees. We know that a lot of pilots are concerned that every time they get in their airplane, they're going to have to pay somebody for the privilege of flying. What is the position of the committee on that, and how can that frankly be prevented?
Well, the committee has taken the position that obviously the system has to be paid for, but it has to be done in a fair way. And that means that if you're running a Boeing 747, you don't pay the same amount as if you're running a Cessna. And we're also concerned that the system be as open as possible and that people not be discouraged from filing flight plans and doing other things that promote safety, because that's a major concern in the aviation area. So we've resisted and basically put the kibosh on a number of proposals that have recently come out of the FAA or some of the budget people, where they want to have $100 fees for this or some other charges for things that have not been charged for in the past. Some of the times the paperwork and annoyance really exceeds the revenue, and in fact it might be so counterproductive the government wouldn't get any revenue anyway. So we're hoping that instead they'll take advantage of increasing opportunities with modern technology. People can scan stuff like they never could before. They can email stuff like they never could before. It should be a lot easier to modernize the way some of this stuff, what used to be called paperwork, is done, so it'll be cheaper for everyone concerned.
Now, the fuel tax, we understand, is largely going into the general fund instead of being set aside for airports and the aviation infrastructure. Is there a way that the committee can address that issue?
Well, we are not on the taxing side of the business in the House of Representatives. They seek our advice, but we are in the authorizing side of things. And in the fuel area, there's been a lot more concern, particularly for the general aviation community, on being able to maintain standard fuel until an acceptable alternative, if whenever it can be developed, is developed, so we don't end up driving some of the old warbirds and specialty aircraft out of the air entirely, or raising the cost for the general aviation community so high it doesn't make any sense. Now, the experts will tell you, well, half of all the lead going into the air is coming from aviation now, but that's a half of what? Half of a very small percentage of lead that used to be done. You're never going to get it to zero, and there's an issue at some point. Is the goal 100% purity just for the sake of that, or are you actually trying to protect people? And what is the damage that's being done by the small amount that's going into the air? So we're trying to make sure that there's a reasonable approach, and that we recognize that there are a lot of different competing interests, and one of them is to make sure that Americans have freedom of the sky.
Avidyne is the brand of choice for pilots who want innovative, easy-to-use avionics, and the new IFD 540 and 440 FMS GPS navcoms set a new standard for ease of use and simplicity. As plug-and-play replacements for legacy 530 and 430 series navigators, the Hybrid Touch user interface of the IFD 540 and IFD 440 makes it much easier to access the information you want while reducing head-down time and making flying more enjoyable. Now you have a choice, and the choice is easy. Avidyne.
Let's talk about UAVs for just a moment, because that's an issue that came up a couple of times during your town hall meeting. What are the committee's concerns about allowing UAVs into the national airspace?
Well, obviously, if you're flying a small plane, you're trying to maintain situational awareness, but when you're looking for other aircraft largely, and if something's a little smaller, it could come creeping up, and there's a risk that there could be a collision or some other difficulty as a result. This is a growing part of, I think, the future. You can talk to the military. They don't see pilots for too much longer in a lot of roles that they used to have in the military. Drones and unmanned craft are taking over more and more. We are going to see more automated operations. In the last reauthorization bill, we did direct the FAA to try to develop protocols that would be safe and protect safety and would allow for reasoned development, not just a wild west up there in the sky. The danger is you're going to get not just different federal agencies that want to check on farmers and what's really being grown and various things like that, but you're going to get radio stations and TV stations wanting to do weather reports, various other people impinging on what's been the traditional turf of general aviation particularly.
One of the things we hear a lot from pilots here at Oshkosh is the concern about the requirement that they will have to have ADSB Out technology in the very near future. Is the committee addressing the ADSB Out technology and how that can be better made available to the pilot who maybe can't afford to put another $2,500 box in his airplane?
We're trying. Now, my understanding is that if we can allow some flexibility, the cost is starting to come down fairly rapidly, but there's always a learning curve with new technology, and after it gets out there for a while, the cost can come down pretty fast. So we've seen that with all this GPS stuff, which used to be pretty esoteric, and now everyone has a Palm Pilot practically, and I think a lot of people in general aviation have much more weather situational awareness and other things right in their cockpit because of the new technology at a reasonable price than some of the people do that are relying on the air traffic control system.
Welcome to the Aero-News Network, the aviation world's most comprehensive news and information resource. Real-time 24/7 online audio and video programming, where aviation has been getting updated for over a decade. Distributing over 11,000 stories, features, audio, and video programs every year. Only ANN covers aviation and aerospace with this much depth, insight, and expertise. Check us out on the web at aero-news.net.
Yesterday during Acting Administrator Huerta's session, we heard from a pilot with about 750 hours who's concerned about losing his job when the new rules kick in for time spent as pilot in command to work for an airline. Acting Administrator Huerta's comment was, you need to talk to your congressman about that. What kind of things is the committee looking at to maybe make sure that a lot of these pilots who are not going to be able to get the required number of hours before that 2013 deadline kicks in might lose their job?
Well, I guess we will have to learn more about how big a problem that is. We have been very concerned and had a number of hearings because of the Colgan crash and some other aviation incidents in trying to tighten up on making sure that adequate preparation and standards so far as trying to avoid fatigue, and also on training for pilots, because that was a total screw up so far as the personnel on the plane was concerned. They went into a stall when it was a pretty basic thing, and they did have ice buildup, but they still could have probably come out of that situation if they'd been more aware of what was going on around them instead of chatting in the cockpit. And then when they did run into a problem, instead of just reacting naturally, reacting the way training teaches you, which is kind of counter-instinctive of going into the problem and building up your speed again. So there is a need for the training. If the transition period is a problem for some people, if there's some solution there, I'd certainly be eager to pursue it.
One thing more, the Alexander Amendment to the transportation bill was defeated. Most people here probably think it's a good thing. You're aware that's the one that would have had the Park Service being able to take control of some of the airspace for helicopter tours over the Grand Canyon. Is the committee taking a stance, and is there legislation that you might be able to consider that would make sure that the FAA does maintain control over the airspace without having it be parsed out piecemeal to other agencies?
Yes, that's been our role. This has come up in other areas. Not only, you mentioned the Grand Canyon, with the helicopter and tourist flights going in there, but he was concerned about some camping in federal park areas in the Smokies. We've had issues having to do with medical helicopter flights and who should be responsible for that. And we've always taken the position that it really should remain with the FAA, because with all their problems, they are the ones that can do a better job of looking at the whole picture rather than one segment after another. We'll end up creating a lot more conflicts than we already have.
Congressman Petri, I know this is your home district, so welcome back to Wisconsin, and thanks for taking some time with us on Aero-TV.
Well, I'm delighted to be here, and I hope all of your viewers, if they haven't had a chance to come to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, put it on their list for next summer, because it's been a great week, and there's always something new, and it's an awful lot of fun.